Welcome to the free audio rendering of Not Without Scars 2. Such an insightful and impactful work must be accessible to the countless number of people living similar life experiences. Becoming a best-selling author pales in comparison to creating a tool capable of instilling hope in a multitude of people trapped in the valley of decision. My greatest profit comes in helping others emerge victorious over their life struggles. My goal is to encourage individuals to follow their dream. My message: you must never quit on your faith, pursuing your aspiration or vision. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Take a moment, invite your family, friends and acquaintances, and enemies to listen to this work chapter by chapter. It is free to listen as well as free to subscribe. Peace, love, and phenomenal blessing.
How do I write my life story? I know hurt and pain. I don't like either one, whether physical or emotional. Herein contains my story, Not Without Scars Part 2, Optimism, Perseverance, Persistence, Resilience, 2 decades of personal struggle. Optimism, I faced a new millennium with hopefulness. Perseverance, my ego, my humble beginnings, my desire to achieve never allow me to turn away from a difficult task. Persistence, opposition should be anticipated as an effective strategy to victory surfaces. Resilience, difficulties do not automatically spell termination. Scars reveal my imperfection as reminders of past episodes of pain, sorrow, or triumph. Scars can tell beautiful story endings or relay misery that wishes to remain anonymous. This work is meant to help others who have experienced decades of struggle. When struggles appear to never end, you must get through the night and face the challenge of a new dawn with fresh hope.
I'm Mark Carbonose, and I'm sharing with you chapter by chapter, Not Without Scars 2. Chapter 12, The Arrest. Introduction. Extremely loud banging and undistinguishable voices combined to make sleep-disturbing noise. Jacqui, Madison, and I were awakened by sounds pouring into our first-floor bedroom. The banging was originated from FBI agents and U.S. Marshals knocking in the predawn hours of an October Saturday morning. I collected myself as best I could with my wife, Jacqui, frantically shaking and wanting me to see what was transpiring at our peaceful home, not to mention my 6-year-old daughter, Madison, being traumatized. As I hurriedly made my way to the front door where the ruckus originated, I said hastily to Jacqui, "Do not allow Madison to come out of the room." "FBI, open the door." Multiple voices and weapons were banging on the door. It was incoherent, deliberately induced chaos designed to ensure panic. I opened the door to armed men rushing in like the cavalry. "Are there any weapons in the house?" the special agent in charge asked. "No," I replied. "Do you have a body warrant or a search warrant?" "A body warrant," came the response. "Any other person in the house?" "Only my wife and baby." A U.S. Marshal started to take steps toward my bedroom. I immediately instated in as firm a command as possible, "Do not open my bedroom door. My wife and daughter in there." The special agent gave him the command to stand down. I was able to have Jacqui hand a pair of pants and shoes outside the door. I was handcuffed and taken to the awaiting police vehicle. I inquired of the special agent, "Was this really necessary? All you had to do was call me and tell me to come down to your headquarters." He stated, "I am sorry, but this is the way it had to be." The way it had to be. I watched SWAT team members emerge with rifles from the rear of my home. Humiliated and helpless, I felt rage racing through every fiber of my body. As I was being led to the vehicle, I distinctly heard the Holy Spirit say to me, in my spirit and soul, "Do not get bitter." Historical. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Winston S. Churchill. Inconvenience is not a destruction. Years ago, such an ordeal as a predawn raid would not have been so emotionally upsetting as the storming of my house in the presence of my wife and daughter. Brittany was away at college, and Dreamer was spending the night with a friend. At least they were spared eyewitnessing this horrendous ordeal. What in time past I would have referenced as an occupational hazard now loomed as a horror movie gone bad. The element of surprise was not necessary for this instance. It was staged as another step in the full repudiation of my status as a pillar in our community. This tactic was meant to fully vilify my character. The surge of force also relayed the connotation of the power to crush my self-worth. My successful road no longer held any value to the institution on a mission to destroy me. Success should never be internalized as a go-through life free card. At the same time, I reserve the internal fortitude to recognize that failure is not a death sentence. Whatever this current state, no matter how horrendous, I had to summon my inner resolve and fountain of courage. I will continue to live, survive, and find a way to thrive. It is hard to recant all the thoughts imploding in one's head when your world is crashing down as the universe continues to spin at its usual pace. One moment, everything slows down, and the next millisecond, everything accelerates to warp speed. Tons of thoughts weighed me down. Simultaneously, my head became light. I could not make a connection of two syllables, let alone make comprehensive sentences flow together. Recalling years of frustration and countless occurrences that have gone awry, the temptation to mentally check out appeared. The stamina and necessity to push through the dark maze aligned with the depth of my true nature. This momentary inconvenience would never amount to enough to totally destroy who I was. Yes, I had taken a dizzying blow. My head was spinning. Thinking clearly would come later. It was merely remembering that this was a time to be quiet and still. I had to reassure myself of who I was and what I had to overcome in life. I needed to stay focused on my immediate need to limit thoughts. No decision would be made in this initial stage of a pressure moment. Assessments of the facts would arise first. I knew the dilemma in which I found myself was not going to vanish. Prayer would come later. This was not a contradiction of my faith. First, I had to retain who I was as an individual. What could I possibly utter in prayer when my head was spinning faster than the speed of sound? In fact, people were speaking to me, but I could not hear or comprehend their language. How often would my life be thrown into situations out of my control? How often would my life simply hurl itself into spaces without controls? How many times must I struggle to keep my feet grounded when elements of torment pull to snap my mental state? Life does not always provide a cushioning pillow to soften a sudden fall. Social Black experience. Don't let anything stop you. There will be times when you will be disappointed, but you can't stop. Sadie T.M. Eliot. Pain and sorrow repeat often. I had stopped paying my cell phone bill, but the service continued. I recognized that every conversation was being recorded. At the very least, I gained free cell phone usage during the investigation. Of course, this measure was a clear indication that the end game was approaching. Many people flee the battlefield when scrutiny to their personal lives come into question. Most political citizens will openly court anyone and everyone for votes or assistance during a campaign. With the exception of but a few, these same individuals scatter or scramble away from a so-called friend at the first hint of trouble. The hunt for perfection only occurs during non-voting moments. Truth and good ideas are elusive to people who only want truth and good ideas from perfect people. The gatekeepers of the community will go to any length to block truth and good ideas originating from anyone who has not been assigned to their limited class role. It constantly reminds me of the house slave who felt with all sincerity and allegiance to the master and his family, but only contempt for the field slaves and their families. Being a bellwether for the master of the plantation was significantly different from being a bellwether for truth with good ideas for the betterment of the multitude. Even with the knowledge that I could not expect much help from the gatekeepers, I never stopped setting forth good ideas. In the midst of an investigation, I knew good ideas exceeded my own fate. Too bad, I discovered. People close to me desired to be next to the microphone for a photo op rather than standing in line to take the microphone and the responsibility to fulfill a good idea to help others. Disappointment at times appeared to pay my rent. So often, disappointment crept into my life on almost every occasion, on nearly every level. Yet, I would always find a way to overcome a setback and maneuver to the platform where others could benefit from the next programmatic initiative. There was no quit in me. I had to recall this core value frequently. Never allowing pressures from circumstances force me to recant or renege on that personal value. There would always be a next good idea or several good ideas to motivate and stimulate my creative existence. My desire to live above the challenges to curb my enthusiasm to uplift others. Some say we repeat the same lesson until we get it right. Perhaps. There may be some validity to that statement or principle. For me, pain and sorrow come with nearly every fresh lesson. Even getting it correct the first time around, the next lesson comes with a different revelation of pain and sorrow. In striving to the next plateau, I have learned to love myself over and over again. I make mistakes, but I must still love myself. My people, according to the flesh, wrong me often, but I must forgive them and love them over and over again. Black people, we must learn to love one another over and over again. How often? Until 7 times? Or will it be 70 times 7? Perhaps. Maybe we have to practice loving one another until it becomes ingrained in our spirit. We must love each other through the pain and suffering. No matter how often the need occurs, it must be repeated. This is the lesson of the ages. We have no other option but to get it right. Theological. Then I returned and considered all the oppressions that are practiced under the sun, and I beheld the tears of the oppressed, and they had no comforter. On the side of the oppressors was power, but they too had no comforter. Ecclesiastes 4, verse 1, Amplified Bible Classic Edition. When you have need of comfort, I do not mean to make the following statement with sacrilegious attitude and definitely not in a posture of desecration. With that disclaimer being made, I do not wish my comments to be taken as blasphemy. It has often been quoted or even sung in song that Jesus is a lawyer in a courtroom who has never lost a case. I beg to differ. I have had him on at least 5 occasions, and I lost all 5 times. Well, 2 may qualify as an exemption. Once I got a hung jury, and another time I got probation. My track record in the courtroom has not been a winning experience for me. I usually go to trial with the hope of victory, knowing that I will exercise the appeal process to the fullest extent practical and possible. And arrest for me, prison time is a very real potential conclusion. Without faith, I would have only tears. Tears are part of a conviction. They may not stream down your face for a public display, but the heart will flood the soul with tears at some point along the journey. The question becomes, where will the comfort arise in order not to drown in your own tears? I had to rely on my faith, even after a disappointment of the greatest magnitude. Isolation, loneliness, remoteness, and sequestration have all contributed to the pain of frustration and bewilderment in my life. At these times, I have needed and found comfort in knowing that I will somehow overcome the present dilemma. Faith has been my bridge to family, friends, funds, and ongoing creativity.